What if the worst nightmare you've ever had wasn't just, a glitch in your brain?
Right, like just random noise?
Yeah, exactly. What if it was actually this deliberate, like highly sophisticated psychological intervention designed to save you from yourself?
I mean, we usually think of our stress dreams as just pointless torture.
Mm.
You wake up sweating, your heart is just hammering against your ribs, and
And your first thought is always just this massive wave of relief that it wasn't real.
exactly, yeah. But when you actually start looking at the mechanics of these dreams,
Hmm.
it reveals something much more um, intentional happening under the surface.
Which brings us to our source material for today's deep dive. We're looking at a highly detailed first-hand account of a wildly stressful dream.
And on the surface, the premise is pretty simple, right?
Right, yeah. The dreamer's supposed to go on a date with a woman he liked back in middle school. It's that classic nostalgic fantasy.
Totally.
But our mission today is to trace how the subconscious takes this really innocent premise and just engineers it into a complete, surreal, chaotic nightmare.
We're basically going to map out the bizarre dream logic.
Yeah, the broken physics, the weird architecture, and the cognitive science of why our brains actively build these specific torture chambers for us while we sleep.
So, to set the baseline of this story, it starts in a setting that already kind of hints at how the brain organizes memory.
Right.
The dream opens in this really busy environment that feels um, like a hybrid between a school and an office.
Which is such a classic dream setting.
It is, yeah. People are bustling around. There's this heavy sense of obligation and work. And right in the middle of all this chaos, the dreamer remembers his upcoming date with his childhood crush.
Which immediately sets up this idealized expectation, right?
Exactly.
But if you've ever made a completely irrational social blunder in a dream, like something you would literally never do while awake,
Yeah.
you will relate to what happens next.
Oh, yeah, the anxiety kicks in.
Right. The dreamer realizes he just doesn't have the courage to go meet her alone. So he invites an old elementary school friend to tag along. And the friend is just like, sure, no problem.
But the crucial misstep here is that he doesn't tell his date about this arrangement at all.
He just plans to ambush her.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah.
He plans to just show up to this highly anticipated reunion with a completely uninvited +1.
It's so bad.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
And to understand why we make such terrible decisions in dreams, we kind of have to look at the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex.
Okay, the what now?
So that's the part of your brain responsible for logic, planning, and impulse control.
Basically the filter that stops you from doing really embarrassing things in public.
Exactly. And during REM sleep, that specific part of the brain basically just goes offline.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, your emotional centers are firing on all cylinders,
Yeah.
but your logical manager is just, well, asleep at the wheel. So when the dreamer feels that intense anxiety of a first date, his brain immediately jumps to the most comforting solution, which is bringing a friend, without any ability to project the future social consequences of that action.
And the consequences arrive incredibly fast in this dream
Oh, they do.
because the dreamer gets distracted in this weird school office hybrid place and his phone starts ringing.
Yeah.
And our source gives us a very specific timeline here.
Right, he misses the first call.
Yeah, he misses a call at 10:50, then another one at 11:50, and finally at 12:10 he answers, but he's in the middle of a class or a lecture or something, so he has to whisper into the phone.
And the woman on the other end of the line just completely shatters the nostalgic fantasy instantly.
Oh, she is having none of it.
She is furious. I mean, she demands to know why he isn't answering. She's interrogating him about how he's getting to her place, and most importantly, if he's bringing someone.
And driven into a corner, he confesses that, yes, he is bringing someone. And this woman, who the dreamer remembered as this, lovely, gentle person from middle school, she suddenly turns ice cold and snaps, I hate that guy.
Which is fascinating because we are seeing the process of memory reconsolidation happening in real time here.
Like translated into a narrative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The brain is actively overwriting the old, idealized version of this crush with a highly critical, demanding figure.
Wow.
The subconscious is just outright refusing to let this be a simple, happy reunion, and it's introducing massive social friction instead.
And the dreamer handles this friction in literally the worst way possible.
He really does.
He turns to the friend, who, remember, is standing right there next to him in this noisy, crowded hallway, and tells him with this bizarre, radical honesty, hey, my date hates you and wants you to stay home.
It's so painful to even think about.
I mean, why on earth would you tell your friend that your date hates him to his face? It's like booking a romantic dinner, bringing a chaperone, and then immediately starting a fist fight between them.
Right. But that's the deactivated prefrontal cortex striking again.
Yeah.
But there's also something deeply purposeful about this awkwardness.
Really? How so?
The brain is simulating a worst-case scenario. By creating this intense social friction, the subconscious is forcing the dreamer to confront the reality that dragging his past into his present is just a messy, unworkable idea.
So it's sabotage, but for his own good.
Exactly.
Well, obviously the first friend gets mad and bails.
Understandable.
Yeah, completely ghosted. But the dreamer, who is just completely blinded by this perceived obligation to make the date happen, decides his next best move is to ask the woman if he can bring a second old friend instead.
And her response is even harsher this time. She says, his personality is even worse. I don't want to see him.
Just absolutely brutal. But unfazed by the fact that his date thinks his friend's personality is garbage, the second friend agrees to go anyway.
Right.
But here's where the mental friction of these awful phone calls suddenly spills over into the physical world.
This is where it gets really weird.
Yeah, if you've ever had a dream where you are trying to run but your legs feel like they are made of concrete, you're going to relate to this next part so much.
The literal journey to the date transforms into this impossible, surreal slog. So the destination is an airport, right?
Right.
But their route mysteriously forces them to go through this old, small shrine that sells souvenirs.
And at the entrance to the shrine, there are these glass showcases containing statues of mythical lion-like beasts called shishi.
Yeah.
And bizarrely, these showcases are filled up to waist height with mud, like it's the aftermath of a severe flood or something. It's a very specific, grim image, but the mud isn't just a visual detail.
No, it fundamentally breaks the dreamer's physical reality.
Exactly. The dreamer completely loses the ability to walk normally. He describes the sensation of floating in midair like he's in zero gravity, but while simultaneously being pulled horizontally toward the building by this massive gravitational force.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. He's forced to crawl on all fours, fighting this intense sideways gravity, jumping twice just to make a few inches of forward progress.
And this sounds exactly like a video game glitch, right?
Right.
Where your character gets stuck in the terrain, but your co-op partner is just walking around totally fine.
Yes. Because meanwhile, the second friend is just strolling perfectly normally through the muddy ground.
Unbothered.
Completely unbothered. Why does the brain invent these incredibly specific broken physics engines just to slow us down? Like, what is the point of the sideways gravity?
So this is actually a classic manifestation of rematonia.
Okay, what is that?
It's the temporary muscle paralysis that occurs while you dream. Your brainstem actively cuts off motor signals to your spine so you don't, physically act out your dreams and hurt yourself in bed.
Right, so you don't punch your nightstand.
Exactly. But sometimes your dreaming mind sends an urgent signal to your legs saying, move forward.
But the legs aren't responding.
The physical feedback loop is completely broken. Your brain realizes there's this massive discrepancy between the command it just sent and the sensory feedback it's receiving from your actual body.
Oh, so it makes up an excuse.
Yes. To make sense of this paralysis, the dreaming narrative invents an environmental reason for your inability to move. It hallucinates waist-deep mud, or sideways gravity, or legs made of lead.
That is wild. And the reason the friend is walking around normally is because the friend is basically a non-playable character generated by the brain, right?
Exactly. He's not subject to the dreamer's real-world motor cortex paralysis.
The juxtaposition is brilliant because the physical struggle directly mirrors the dreamer's internal psychological state. His conscious mind is saying, I have to hurry to this date, but his subconscious is literally dragging him down.
It's translating his reluctance and his dread into this heavy, unnavigable gravity.
And you can see the thematic clash, too. You have this ancient, muddy, traditional shrine, and the ultimate goal is reaching a hypermodern airport.
Right, two completely different worlds.
It's a journey between two completely mismatched eras, which perfectly mirrors the mismatch between his nostalgic memory of the woman from childhood and the harsh, aggressive reality of the present.
So after literally fighting gravity and crawling on all fours, he finally arrives at the airport. And you'd assume the hard part is over.
You would hope so.
But arriving at the destination in a stress dream rarely brings any actual relief.
No, navigating the building turns out to be even more impossible than the mud. The dreamer notes he has actually never flown before, and he is terrified of the airport.
Right.
And just as he arrives, the woman calls again. She tells him she made the reservation, and the dreamer begs her not to rush things because his nerves are just completely fried, and she dismissively replies, "Then how are you coming?"
Just zero empathy.
Zero, which forces him into the labyrinth of the airport.
And to understand why dream architecture is so notoriously frustrating, we have to look at the hippocampus.
That's the part that handles memory, right?
Memory and spatial mapping, yeah.
Mhm.
When you are awake, your eyes and ears constantly update your spatial map. You know where the walls are, where the doors are.
Right.
In a dream, the hippocampus is trying to build a 3D environment entirely from memory without any new sensory data to stabilize it.
Which perfectly explains why the layout of this airport is designed to confuse.
It's a mess.
It starts with stairs going up like a train station, leading to a gate, which opens into a plaza with an information center. There's this massive 40-inch TV displaying numbers in order.
So specific.
The dreamer looks down, realizes his number is 1496, and goes to the receptionist for help.
And he asks where he's supposed to go,
Yeah.
and she tells him his numbers is in the second half, towards the back.
Which is completely useless information when you don't know the layout of the space.
It really is.
So he steps outside the glass doors, hoping for some kind of clarity, and she yells after him, "Just go straight south."
Classic dream logic.
So following her instruction, he steps out the door and finds himself right back on the outside street he originally came from.
Oh, no.
He can actually see the real planes, but they are behind a huge wall on his right. He's physically locked out of the airport he was just inside.
So he goes back in to clarify, asking if he should go south inside the building. And she tells him no, he must go outside and walk south.
Which he does, and it just leads him into a perfectly normal, mundane town with absolutely no planes in sight.
It's so frustrating.
If you've ever spent an entire dream just trying to find a specific door, or like dial a phone number that keeps changing every time you look at the screen,
Well, the changing phone numbers are the worst.
you know the exact flavor of this panic. It is the ultimate terrible customer service experience.
Psychologists actually call this a frustration dream.
That makes sense.
Yeah, the brain sets a clear objective, getting on the plane to meet the date, but continuously alters the rules and moves the goalposts.
Right.
The contrast between the visible planes behind the wall and the mundane town outside perfectly illustrates the feeling of being locked out of your own goals. The mechanisms to achieve what you want are deliberately broken by your own mind.
And right in the middle of this escalating time running out panic, the brain decides to just throw in a celebrity sighting.
Because why not?
Right. The dreamer is heading back to the entrance, totally lost, and out of nowhere, Beat Takeshi, the famous Japanese comedian and filmmaker, casually walks out of the entrance and heads home for the day.
It feels like pure dream randomness, but there is actually a cognitive explanation for this.
Really?
Yeah, during sleep, your brain is filing away memories and strengthening neural connections in a process called semantic network activation.
Okay.
And sometimes it accidentally activates adjacent, completely unrelated nodes of information.
So you're stressed about navigating a Japanese airport. Your brain reaches into its Japanese cultural figures file to populate the background, and suddenly Beat Takeshi is just walking past your panic attack.
Exactly. And it acts as a bizarre contrast, too. The brain is basically mocking the dreamer's panic with mundane absurdity. A major celebrity is just going about his normal, stress-free life, completely unbothered, while the dreamer is trapped in this personalized nightmare of logistics.
Well, with the clock ticking and time running out, the dreamer just abandons the rules of the airport entirely. He ignores the unhelpful receptionist and literally forces his way past the entrance.
He just pushes through.
Yeah, and by doing this, he breaks the spatial logic of the dream and is instantly teleported inside the plane.
He bypasses the maze, but forcing the issue only accelerates the anxiety. The environment instantly shifts from expansive and confusing to incredibly claustrophobic and targeted.
He makes it onto the plane, but his friend, the one who tagged along and endured all those insults earlier, casually abandons him.
Just leaves.
Yeah, he says, "I'm going," and heads off to a different seat, leaving the dreamer completely alone. The dreamer is in a full panic now, desperately searching the aisles, utterly unable to find seat 1496.
And that isolation is totally intentional. The brain has stripped away his crutch. He's finally alone with the anxiety he's been trying to avoid this entire time.
And then the dream delivers its most crushing, visceral blow.
This part is so bad.
While he's panicking, breathing heavily, running around the plane, He realizes his phone has been connected in his pocket this entire time.
Oh, no.
Yes, the line to his date was never disconnected.
The ultimate pocket dial.
He pulls it out and says hello, and the woman explodes. She yells, "Were you not listening? What have you been doing this whole time?"
Oh, that is awful.
Think about the absolute nightmare fuel of that realization. It's bad enough to be lost on a plane, but realizing the person you're trying to impress has been sitting in your pocket, listening to you heavily panting, getting lost, and being yelled at by a receptionist.
It is the absolute pinnacle of exposure and vulnerability. All of his incompetence, which he was trying so desperately to hide from her, has been broadcast directly into her ear.
Just live streamed.
Yeah, and during REM sleep, the amygdala, which is the brain's emotional processing center, is highly hyperactive.
Right.
So this amplifies feelings of fear, embarrassment, and rejection far beyond what we typically experience while we're awake.
And the dreamer explicitly notes the transformation here. The gentle, quiet woman he used to like has fully morphed into a highly aggressive, strong-willed person who is openly furious with him.
The nostalgic illusion is entirely shattered. The brain has replaced the memory with a hostile threat.
But he still tries to save it.
He does.
He desperately tries to tell funny stories, trying to lighten the mood over the phone while wandering the aisles of the plane. But she remains completely stone-faced. She just tells him, "If we talk this much on the phone, we won't have anything to talk about when we meet."
She coldly shuts down his final attempt at connection.
Yeah.
And that total rejection actually sparks a vital moment of clarity. After all the mud, the zero gravity, the terrible directions, and the yelling, the dreamer reaches a breaking point.
He's just done.
He actively decides, in the dream, that he no longer wants to meet her.
The fantasy is dead. Defeated, he gives up looking for seat 1496 and just sits down in a random seat. He accepts failure.
But the subconscious isn't quite finished with him yet.
Of course not.
The moment he sits down, the actual owner of that random seat arrives, looks down at him and says, "That's my seat."
And that final eviction is the trigger. It pushes the anxiety past the absolute limit, finally causing the dreamer to jolt awake.
It's a brilliant thematic way for the subconscious to resolve the central tension, really.
Yeah.
The wrong seat isn't just an inconvenience. It represents his ultimate realization that he doesn't belong in this scenario at all.
Wow. Right.
The entire exhausting ordeal wasn't really about missing a flight or terrible customer service. It was a grueling psychological process of realizing that the idealized version of this person from middle school simply doesn't exist anymore.
It's like his brain put him through a stress test to violently sever his attachment to the past. He doesn't belong on this date, and he doesn't belong in this clinging attachment to his childhood crush.
The phone call was the final nail in the coffin for his nostalgia. Dreams are incredibly creative, immersive sandboxes where our subconscious forces us to confront the emotional baggage we refuse to look at during the day.
That makes a lot of sense.
The brain takes abstract social guilt and impossible expectations, and it turns them into literal mud and broken architecture, so we have no choice but to wrestle with them.
So to summarize the sheer scale of this psychological intervention, it starts with a simple case of social anxiety.
Right, inviting a friend on a date because you're nervous.
Exactly. And that one tiny mistake, fueled by a sleeping prefrontal cortex, spirals into crawling through mud, battling sideways gravity, decoding terrible airport directions from an unhelpful receptionist.
Getting mocked by a B. Takeshi cameo.
Yes, the cameo. And finally, facing a hot mic confrontation that ruins a childhood crush forever.
The dreamer was forced to confront the reality that you can't go back. You can't recapture the past, and trying to force it into the present will only lead to exhaustion and rejection.
Which brings me to one final thought for you to mull over.
All right.
We've talked a lot about how stressful and awful the woman in the dream became, and how terrifying it was to be yelled at by her. But what if the aggressive, demanding, totally unlikable version of the crush in this dream wasn't a punishment at all?
Interesting.
What if the dreamer's subconscious deliberately engineered her to be entirely unbearable, actively sabotaging his romantic fantasy just to protect him?
Oh, to make it easier to let go.
Exactly. What if the brain's ultimate goal wasn't to torture the dreamer with a bad night's sleep, but to force him, once and for all, to let go of a past that was holding him back?
That's a powerful way to look at it.
Think about that the next time you wake up sweating from a bad dream. Maybe your brain is just trying to do you a massive favor.